Seeing none, I'll recognize the member for Innisfail-Sylvan Lake.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to rise here and speak on Bill 8, the Electric Utilities Amendment Act. I speak here today with the help of and advice of a local constituent of mine who was one of the many Albertans outraged by what this government tried to force through with Bill 50. His advice has been very important to me, and with his help, I am glad to share some of his and my thoughts on Bill 8 with this Assembly. What Bill 8 does is it repeals a section of Bill 50 that allowed the Cabinet to deem any electrical transmission critical transmission infrastructure and bypass the required needs assessment from the Alberta Utilities Commission. The needs assessment by the regulator, the AUC, ensured that actual technical experts made the decision on whether a project should go ahead based on actual need and not on the whims of a politician sitting around the Premier's Cabinet table. Bill 8 is an admission that the government has recognized the fact that just because you are not appointed to the Premier's Cabinet does not mean that you have the technical expertise to grant approval of a line based on need. This is a major admission and is definitely a step in the right direction. However, the government has not acknowledged that, in fact, the lines they approved under Bill 50 were a mistake and were approved under a process that they now acknowledge was insufficient. It is completely inconceivable that the Bill 50 lines approved under a flawed concept should now be in any way considered proper or prudent. Why would a government stand before this Assembly to repeal legislation they know is flawed, but continue to support billions of dollars in transmission lines that were approved through the very same flawed legislation? None of these lines have been completed. In fact, most have not progressed to actual construction. It is not too late to do the right thing and let the AUC conduct their assessment of those existing lines. The Wild Rose official opposition calls on this government, if they're serious about what they have done in Bill 8, to put our existing power line projects under the same regulations and scrutiny as future ones should be.
Yes.
There can be no real argument against delaying these lines until a needs assessment can be conducted under the new provisions of Bill 8. When the government has already admitted Bill 50 was a flawed process, it is absolutely necessary that we follow this corrected procedure on the lines that were wrongly approved under Bill 50. Why not follow the corrected process on these lines before we spend billions of dollars on infrastructure that may not even be needed? Better to err on the side of caution than burden our citizens for generations with a system that is not necessary. This same system will put onerous costs onto the backs of Albertans. If this government really believes these lines under Bill 50 are necessary, then allow them to follow the process the government now acknowledges is necessary in Bill 8. It would be a complete tragedy if we infringed on landowners' rights and destroyed Alberta industry and businesses with uncompetitive power rates due to power lines that couldn't pass an act the government now deems necessary. Mr. Speaker, we would be remiss if we did not take a minute to talk about hard-working families, our most vulnerable, seniors, and how Bill 50 directly affects them. As someone who is passionate about our seniors and someone who is personally responsible for aging parents, I've seen firsthand the difficult choices that are already having to be made. Our seniors who built this country often live on fixed incomes, and they are paying for this government's mismanagement of power lines. Seniors across this great province are being forced to decide between what they buy for groceries and paying their power bill. One only has to use common sense to understand that if seniors are already having difficulty living off of their fixed incomes and accommodating the increased power costs, that if power bills do double, the vulnerable Albertans will be forced to make very difficult decisions that will be detrimental to their quality of life. At what stage does this government realize that we need to respect Albertans and those who built this province and ensure that this legislation that is passed in this great House does not detrimentally affect those who have put us here? Mr. Speaker, I applaud this government for bringing Bill 8 forward to correct their mistakes of the past. I encourage them to halt construction on the Bill 50 lines until a needs assessment can be conducted by the AUC. Let's not continue to go down the wrong road by constructing these lines until we can let the technical experts find out if we actually need them. Let's not let Albertans down any longer. Let's ensure that if these lines cannot pass a needs assessment test by the AUC, that Alberta's seniors and families do not have to pay the $16 billion in rising price tag for them. It's not too late to do the right thing and repeal Bill 50. Thank you.